Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
God intervened where Secret Service couldn't and failed. Let me say that again. God intervened when Secret Service failed us. The whole idea of the Secret Service, and it's kind of ironic, right? Because how many on the left were saying there should be no more Secret Service for Donald Trump? How many people were saying that? Crazy talk. But in a way, there was no Secret Service. Only those who were literally next to President Trump as the bullet went through his right ear. And as he said, pierced the skin, went through the skin. But God intervened when the Secret Service couldn't even sustain and secure rooftops around the Trump rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday. Because God's hand, and the more I think about this, the more I believe it. It moved that bullet. You may not believe it. You may think I'm talking crazy here. But if that bullet was on a straighter trajectory, it would have been a whole different story. It may not have just been an assassination attempt. It would have been worse. So God intervened where the Secret Service failed. Above all else, and above the flesh, really, right? He protected President Trump. Whether you like the guy or not, you can admit God protected him. And it's not some high horse I'm talking on right now. I'm just being real. I thought of an angle to talk about this on the One Leg Up podcast because, quite frankly, everybody's talked about it from so many different perspectives. But this one, I believe in strongly. For it to only tear through and harm and injure Trump's ear is a miracle. To call it anything else than an assassination attempt is wrong. That's what it was. It wasn't loud noises and banging. It was a shot fired at President Trump. God's hand did move that bullet. And in the human way, we can ask and demand answers when I know there's going to be hearing about this. Why didn't the Secret Service secure the rooftops? Why didn't they? That's a real question heading into Monday. And the convention is on. I applaud Trump for going to the convention and really showing the world he will not be deterred. But how is no one from the Secret Service, and I don't mean the guys on the ground, I mean the upper management, the leadership, been fired or forced to resign? President Biden, your Secret Service failed and allowed a assassination attempt on the former president. And all you do is come on for 5 minutes to the American people last night? That's not a response. A response is, hey, the head of Secret Service has been fired. I just haven't heard that happen yet. The answer is you fire someone. That's the humane and the human thing to do. But the godly thing to say and the godly thing to believe is that when he saw that rifle and that shooter, that 20-year-old, start preparing to fire at Trump, his hand intervened. And we must mourn those lost at the rally. There were 2 that died on Saturday night. And interestingly enough, I was doing a baseball game and announcing for Jimmy Rose, and that was awesome. But in my head, I'm like, how am I going to say, well, now batting, when there was an attempt on the life of the former president? You want to put aside this fact for a minute, it was Donald Trump, and just acknowledge a former president? There was an attempt on his life? The reaction should not change from one president to the other. What I mean by that is, the attempt on Reagan was taken way seriously. This doesn't seem to faze anybody in the media, except for, gotta hand him, the New York Times, whose photographer, Doug Mills, got an incredible picture as the bullet ripped through, and after ripping through Trump's ear. I'm going to get Doug Mills on the show, because that was quite a dramatic picture in the New York Times. But just think, God intervened on Saturday. And I don't know if it was to protect America. I would believe it is, because an assassination of a former president and Donald Trump would be horrible for America. But first and foremost, it was the protection of Trump, thanks be to God, that we must be thanking today. He's a human being, controversial or not, hated or not, he's a human being. And God protected a life on Saturday. And Newsweek is saying Secret Service head to Kimberly Cheadle, who, by the way, before this, worked for PepsiCo. Now, working for PepsiCo is not exactly protecting a former president's rally as he goes for re-election. Cheadle will appear before lawmakers next Monday at a hearing titled Oversight of the U.S. Secret Service and the Attempted Assassination of Donald J. Trump, House Judiciary Chairman James Comer announced Monday. The other thing is, the controversial Judge Cannon has dismissed the classified documents case in Trump's favor. So there's that aftermath as well that may not be reported yet. That's why I'm bringing it to you on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network. But come on, the raised fist in the air, the blood on his face. In this moment, it's American as you can. It's as resilient as you can get. And they shot the shooter dead. But how the shooter was even allowed to be in the perimeter with a rifle, that is where Monday, July 22nd, will be historic. I'm not sure who dropped the ball or why, but I'm hoping next week we get answers. Do we believe them? I don't know. But I figured the week of July 11th was going to be some kind of harming against Trump, whether it was the sentencing that was now delayed, but something weird about that week was going to happen. Sure enough, this happened. And I never thought that it would actually come to fruition. People have talked about it. There's been speculation. Would they try and do it? They being the evil invisible hand that wants chaos and sows dissent among the people. That's the invisible evil hand. But here's the invisible, godly hand saying, evil will not prevail. Evil will not win. God's got this. And that bullet was moved by God. There's really no other way to explain it. You could say, well, yeah, bad aim and all that, but come on. There's a deeper thing to what happened Saturday. God was involved. I am 100% of belief in that. And I know that He is involved in this election, one way or another. Because where the Secret Service failed, God stepped in. And the question is, will the Secret Service continue to fail? Or will God have to step in a little more and more to ensure the safety of a person over politics, and that person just happens to be Donald J. Trump? He intervened in the attempt on the life of a person above all else. And that's where we have to wrap our head around. God over flesh. Or as Harris sings, the failures of the flesh. That was Secret Service leadership this past Saturday, July 13th. I'm going to come out with another episode soon and talk about the White House cover-up of the of Joe Biden's, disability. That's what it is. During ADA Awareness Month, it has to be addressed. And stay tuned for that episode tomorrow or next day on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network. But God intervened where the Secret Service failed us as a country, as an entire country.